Can reading books really help you improve your English fluency?
The more you read books and listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks or practice things on the paper, you are farther and farther away from being able to speak fluently.
Books are a passion in my household, and reading is an essential tool for learning English. So when I saw this video recently by Hadar Shemesh, where she sort of discourages reading books as a way to improve your English fluency, I was a little dismayed. I disagree with a couple of her assumptions about how we learn language, and I will talk about those in a minute. Now, if you don't know Hadar, she is a great, I would say, thought leader and English coach who has an amazing YouTube channel and has helped many people improve their English pronunciation, confidence, and fluency. And she's also a huge inspiration to me. I know Hadar, and I know that she loves open conversations about language learning and communication, so I do not think Hadar will mind that I question some of her assumptions here. Hi Hadar. In this video, Hadar asks an important question. Can reading books really improve your English fluency? Can reading improve your speaking, basically? I have spent the last couple of decades obsessed with helping people from all over the world express themselves better in English. And I have also spent hundreds of hours reading books out loud in my second language, so I have a lot to say about that as well. I actually sometimes read books on this channel, so you might like to join me for a couple of good reads. I will link them down below. So the question, can reading really help you with your speaking? First, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think reading can help you with your speaking? And now I will tell you my answers. I have two. First, yes, reading can absolutely help you with your speaking. And if you're missing reading, it's like you're missing a vital nutrient in your diet. And also, the other answer is, it depends. It depends on how you do it. Small changes to the way you read can make a huge difference in how much that reading translates into results in your speaking. So today I will share two kinds of reading that you can do and how each of those will benefit your fluency. I will also talk about a couple of dangers that you want to avoid when reading in English. And at the end, I will share my favorite technique to take what you read and actively integrate it into your speech. But first, I want to clear up what I think are a couple of misconceptions, so you'll know what reading can do for you and also what reading will not do for you. Hadar says that reading is great for expanding your mind, for enjoyment, and for getting exposed to a lot of great vocabulary. But she cautions her students against reading books as a way to improve their fluency. She seems to feel that reading is maybe a little too safe. She wants to make sure that learners take the bold step of actually using their English and that they don't just hide behind books and create the illusion of learning. Now, Hadar is very wise, and I'm sure she's right about people overusing books because it keeps them in their comfort zone. But she seems to make a couple of demands on reading books that I believe are unfair.
When you see a beautifully structured sentence, that is a perfect example of conditional number 3. Are you able to see it and use it immediately? And that is my problem with improving your fluency through reading books.
So here, Hadar seems to suggest that if you cannot immediately use the words and structures that you find in a book, the reading is not helping your fluency. To me, that is kind of like planting a seed, and if it doesn't instantly grow into a plant covered in fruit, you think that nothing is happening. There's a lot happening below the surface. And especially if we keep nurturing and watering that seed, it will grow.
Are you able to take the word that you have just read and use them spontaneously and quickly and confidently in a conversation.
Use them spontaneously, quickly, and confidently in a conversation immediately? I'm not sure that's the right expectation for the words we read. Your first meeting with a word is just your first meeting. You don't deeply learn a word the first time you encounter it. In order to learn a word, we need to come across it several times, often 7 or 8 or more. Native speakers of a language have a rich web of associations for each word they use. The only way to enrich our own web of associations is to encounter a lot of language. When we meet the words and phrases over and over, we develop a more complete feeling for how they're used, what their connotation is. This is why I encourage learning language in context, like a book, which is very different from learning words from a vocabulary list. This will allow you to develop an instinct for the language so that when we're speaking from instinct rather than trying to remember some rules that we've memorized or some vocabulary that we've memorized. Now, you can encounter lots of language through listening as well, and I absolutely encourage that, because then you get familiar with how the language really sounds, which is often very different from the way it looks on the page. But reading has the advantage that the words hold still on the page. It gives you the chance to notice things that you wouldn't notice if you were just listening, because they would go by too quickly. Now, I agree with Hadar that all our activities should come back around to speaking, and probably the sooner the better. And in the end of the video, I will share a great way to help this process along. Let's see what else Hadar says.
Because there is a big gap between your ability to understand English while reading it and even while writing it, and your ability to actually use it.
That will always be true. There is always a big gap between the language that you can understand and the language that you can use. This is even true in your first language. I can go out and hear someone give an amazing speech in English, which is my first language. I can understand all of that, but I cannot speak at the same level. So that gap between what we understand and what we're able to say is always there. But you can work to get things from your passive vocabulary into your active vocabulary. This is one of my favorite things to do, and we are going to talk about that at the end of the video.
Wouldn't it be great to be able to speak it at the same level? Wouldn't it be great not to have that big gap between the English that you know and the English that you speak?
Yes, it would be great not to have that gap. It would be so great to be able to speak at the same level that we understand. That would be amazing, but that's just not how it works.
The more you read books and listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks or practice things on the paper, you are farther and farther away from being able to speak fluently.
This idea seems almost a little dangerous to me if people take this seriously. I don't think that Hadar really meant this the way it came out. I don't think that Hadar believes that listening to podcasts and reading books is actually taking you further away from fluency. I think, and Hadar, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she just wants to make sure that you are not only doing the receptive activities of reading and listening, because of course those are the safer ones for a lot of people and the easier ones to do. It's important to have balance in our English. Don't just do the input, also do equal amounts of output. I want to make sure that we are clear on one important idea. All the skills of English support and reinforce each other. To improve your speaking, yes, you absolutely have to speak. There is no way to get fluent, and there's no way to get comfortable speaking English without speaking a lot. But reading, writing, and listening also improve your speaking, because language learning is holistic. These skills are not separate from each other. So yes, reading can absolutely help you improve your English overall, including your spoken fluency. So the rest of this video is about how to get the most results from your reading. By results, I mean improved speaking. I want you to mentally separate reading into two categories, two kinds of reading that you can do on two ends of the spectrum so that you can switch between modes and you can also do something in the middle if you choose to. The first kind of reading is extensive reading, where you read material that's fairly easy to understand so you can go through a lot of it just encountering language again and again. So when you do extensive reading, you don't want anything to slow you down too much. You don't want a lot of unfamiliar vocabulary. On a page like this, there should only be a few words you don't know. If you want me to talk about how to find material that's at the right level for you, let me know in the comments. Now for extensive reading, you don't want to add a lot of activities on top of the reading that slow you down. But the danger with this kind of reading is that you can easily slip into a more passive mode. We should always look for ways to stay in active mode when we're learning. How can we make this kind of reading more active without slowing the process down? Read out loud. This will only slow you down a little bit, and it has so many benefits for your memory that it's worth going just that little tiny bit slower. If you read with a pencil in your hand, you will automatically be more active because you will be looking for interesting words, interesting structures to just mark and revisit later. And later when you go back to them, you'll remember all the associations that they have in this story. And then you can close the book, talk about the word in this context, and then make your own original examples with this word out loud. Now, the second kind of reading on the other end of the spectrum is very active reading, where we go back and forth between reading and speaking in the same activity. I do this with my students, and we do a deep dive on the material. And here I select not for material that's easy to get through, but rather for something that's really interesting. Maybe a book, maybe a podcast transcript, or a TED Talk transcript. One danger of reading in English is that you cannot trust English spelling to know how to pronounce things. English sounds so different than the way it looks on the page. So I always look for something with an audio component for my students so that when they work with that material on their own, they never have to guess about how something is pronounced. Having this clarity about how a word is pronounced actually helps you mentally file that word away better. If you have some unresolved doubt, uncertainty about the pronunciation of a word, I don't think you can learn it quite as well. You have to watch out for that. And my solution is that if you are reading without a teacher, probably looking for something with an audio component is a good idea. So tell me, what is your favorite thing to read in English? Do you like to read books? Do you look for something with an audio component? Do you like to read podcast transcripts? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you like to read. Here is the deep dive reading process that I use with my students. It's amazing for them, and you can adapt it for your own use. First, just listen to the material. Listen once for the general idea, and then listen again for the details. Do this without looking at the text at all. Then, read a small section of the text very closely. Do your best to understand everything in that small section. Then look up from the text and restate what you just read. When you do this step, you will be amazed to discover that even though maybe you understood everything perfectly, there will be some parts that are challenging for you to say. Maybe you don't remember the word that was used. You don't remember exactly what that structure was, and you may need to look back at the text, remember, and then look up again. Then you will be able to use that language. This activity is building that bridge between your passive English and your active English. When you restate, just imagine a friend missed that part of the story. They had to take a phone call and they came back and they say, "Oh, what did I miss?" You can use the words from the story. You can use your own words or some combination. After you restate, you can add your own personal thoughts and reflections. Now, this works better with a partner, and I would definitely recommend looking for a partner or a group to do this with. It's actually really fun. But if you don't have a partner, you can record into your phone and you will still get a lot of benefit. Do this not with a whole page, but with a small section at a time, because it will force you to talk about details that you would have skipped over if you had tried to restate the whole page. The details that you would have skipped over are usually the most challenging ones, so it forces you to confront your biggest challenges and build your English where you most need it. At the end of the book, or at the end of the session, if you are really enthusiastic or you want to get fancy, you can write about it. You will be using all 4 skills to support and reinforce each other. Write a summary, write a book review, write your own reflections based on what you read, and share it with a friend or share it in a group. Use what you read as an opportunity to start a conversation, so that even if you read alone, you are using that as a bridge into communication. Those are the 2 kinds of reading at the 2 ends of the spectrum. What I personally do for my own reading in my second language is usually somewhere in the middle, and that will be the topic of a future video. So you might want to subscribe. Watch this video next to read a fun book with me, and I will see you soon. Bye, Hadar.